Chapter 233 Catch everyone in one net. How did the heavens turn dark? It has been night for a while. No. How come I can't see any bit of light? You're right. Strange. Why did my stars turn extremely unstable? They won't respond to my control. Beneath the Nix regime, the students in the middle of the battle royale finally realized that they had entered a rather bizarre domain. This was the shadow domain. It was impossible to see the lights in the distance. If they were in a specific location, they'd barely be able to see their objective. It was like there was an incorporeal, black wall trapping them inside a small room. You could see the people inside the room, but the things outside of the room were unknown. Soon enough, the chaotic battlefield was separated into parts by the Nix regime. At this moment, the students that began to brew hostility toward each other from the fighting began to realize that in this pitch-black maze, if the shadow beast was taken away, no one would know. Don't panic, this is a great magic formation set up by the school. If I'm not wrong, then this is the advanced shadow magic, Nix regime, that has been strengthened many times. The Nix regime is a very strong shadow magic. It is able to set up a dark, maze-like battleground. Other than shadow creatures, within this battleground, the power of other elements will be suppressed by a certain degree. Their power will also be weakened by a lot. We can assume that it was because the school was worried that the people who can use intermediate magic would cause fatal injuries within this chaos. Song Sha, in the same squad as Bai Zhangfeng, spoke up. Song Sha was one of the stronger rookies. Among the female magicians, she was the only one who could face Mu Nujiao. Bai Zhangfeng and the other people began to calm down. However, once he thought about the possibility of someone taking away the shadow beast with the help of the great magic formation, Bai Zhangfeng immediately began to feel worried as he exclaimed, "Then, how can we find the shadow beast?" When Mo Fan had threw the shadow beast at you, I put a magic imprint on it. Just follow me and you'll find it, Song Sha said. Ha ha ha. Lady Song Sha is indeed very quick-witted. This time, the shadow beast will definitely be ours. No one wanted to see the chaotic situation. Where the battle royale would end up was something only the heavens could decide. Now, everyone had been put in the dark battleground of the Nix regime, and so every student would have to reach their maximum efficiency. They won't get suddenly shot by an arrow at random, nor would they be attacked from all sides. Thus, as long as you could find the shadow beast and then find the path that led to the beast taming Iron Cage, then the mission would be considered complete. This godforsaken Mo Fan, when I catch you, I will personally stomp on you. Shen Mingxiao was trapped inside the darkness, and his face showed his anger. Luo Song, at his side, was fuming with rage between his gritted teeth. Originally, they had success within their grasp. Who would have imagined that it would turn out like this? Now they didn't even know where the shadow beast was. It smells. Do you guys smell something? The people next to them asked. I can smell it, too. Damn. What kind of creature? What kind of creature? Are you so scared that you turned dumb? I really did see it. It looked like a monkey-masked thing crawling. The darkness was everywhere. Mo Fan himself was standing on his original ground, and didn't move a single step. The shadow beast could no longer be seen. The Nix regime had divided the place into numerous maze-like battlegrounds. He couldn't help but think that this gave the Black Vatican an easier time moving around. However, how could Mo Fan possibly let them succeed? This great Nix regime formation gave them an additional protective layer. However, it was also a gigantic shadow prison. Tonight, they could forget about leaving this place alive. The Nix regime was a layer of dense fog for a lot of people. It was a domain that suppressed them. Their combat prowess would suffer accordingly. However, as a man that possessed the shadow element, the Nix regime didn't suppress Mo Fan, and it also gave Mo Fan an unlimited amount of space to move around in. For a lot of people, this was a shadow wall that they could not tread over. For Mo Fan, this was the most convenient path of movement. Using evading shadows, Mo Fan would be able to move around the Nix regime maze as much as he pleased. Mo Fan was clear that the people from the Black Vatican's objective was precisely the shadow beast. Thus, his top priority was to find the shadow beast. Fortunately, the shadow beast had been marked by Mo Fan. Mo Fan naturally wouldn't throw the little loach pendant that had absorbed the underground holy spring into the stomach of the shadow beast. All he did was to have the little loach pendant produce a little drop of the underground holy spring. Either way, as long as it had the aura of the underground holy spring, the Black Vatican would definitely make their move. Luring them had already been achieved, and the net had also covered the entire area. The school had made such a large, dark cage, this would cause them to be completely trapped within. He believes that the Black Vatican, who thought they were beneath the protective umbrella, would tear off their skin and expose their true selves. Once they were exposed, Mo Fan would definitely kill them on the spot. Little Loach Pendant, it's on you. Help me find the shadow beast, Mo Fan said toward the little loach pendant on his chest. The little loach pendant was actually very intelligent. It was able to understand its master's intentions. The small ray within the little loach pendant began to slowly shine brighter. It was as though it's slowly pushing away the darkness under the black dome of night. The starlight was very weak, but it began to strengthen once Mo Fan began to move. If the direction Mo Fan walked in was wrong, the radiance would turn weaker. The closer I am to the shadow beast, the brighter it becomes. The farther I am from it, the weaker it becomes? Mo Fan quickly understood the meaning behind it as he couldn't help but kiss the mysterious little loach pendant. Of course, Mo Fan knew that the little loach pendant was only being like this because it didn't want to waste even a drop of the precious underground holy spring. Thus, he didn't really think it was that mysterious. Following the guidance of the little loach pendant, Mo Fan began to look for the shadow beast. Mo Fan was able to easily pass through the walls of the maze. Moving like that, it became much easier for him to find the shadow beast. Strange, why is the direction changing all the time? Mo Fan looked at the flickering little loach pendant as he began to feel suspicious in his heart. Mo Fan continued to move, and suddenly, the direction of the shadow beast changed once more. Mo Fan stood his ground, no longer moving as he continued to look in that direction. At this moment, the little loach pendant actually began to shine brighter on its own. He didn't move, so why did the radiance turn brighter? Whoosh! Suddenly, a gray shadow swept past in front of Mo Fan. It was a creature with the shape of a leopard, you could only see the silhouette of it. However, its tail was radiating a light that seemed extremely bright in the darkness. Shit, wasn't this guy restricted? Mo Fan opened his mouth as he saw the shadow beast flying past much faster than even the spirit wolf. The shadow beast struggled free of its restrictions as it was already running around within the maze. Goo 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 goo. Very quickly, a horrifying sound was heard following it. This sound was something Mo Fan was extremely familiar with. It was a dark beast. The people from the Black Vatican had actually summoned dark beasts, and furthermore, they were hunting for the shadow beast. No wonder the shadow beast was running. It was actually being pursued by a couple of creatures with an overwhelming stench. It seems that if I follow the shadow beast, I'll be able to catch all of them in one stroke. Mo Fan hid inside the wall of the maze as he couldn't help but smile coldly. Chapter 234 Fiery Fist, Groundbreak. It can't be wrong, it's right here. Luo Song's expression sank, his gaze locked onto the darkness in front of him. Bai Zhangfeng and the other three disciples of different aristocratic families also turned serious as they prepared their magic. It stinks. Yeah, who was it that was so scared that they pissed themselves? How could it be so stinky otherwise? Zhuang Lifeng said, "Stop bullshitting, the shadow beast's movements are very quick. Zhuang Lifeng, prepare your plant magic, you must stop the shadow beast." Song Sha did catch a whiff of the strange stench, but she was more concerned about the shadow beast. Zhuang Lifeng nodded. In his palms, a deep green vine was moving around. The green star path streaked past, the plant spell was prepared. They were only waiting for the shadow beast to appear. At last, a gray silhouette appeared. It was as fast as the wind when it ran. If it wasn't for its tail that shone continuously, they wouldn't have seen it. At this moment, Bai Zhangfeng also prepared the magic in his hand. His eyes were fixed on the shadow beast that was charging over. A wall of odor came at them, as well. Originally, these people had a solemn look on their faces. However, once they caught a whiff of the odor, they nearly fainted from it. Bai Zhangfeng, who had mysophobia, immediately began to vomit. Suddenly, Zhuang Lifeng yelled out, "Heavens, what are these creatures?" Zhuang Lifeng was in the front, and he finally understood where that overwhelming stench was coming from. It was precisely from the large group of ghastly monkey faces with deformed black humanoid bodies in front of him. These things formed a group, with some of them even crawling on the wall of the shadow maze. Some of them were rapidly rushing along on the ground, and some were even able to crawl upside down. There was a large number of them, and watching them gave the four of them goosebumps. Zhuang Lifeng swore that he had never seen such ugly and more disgusting creatures in his whole life. "Hurry up and get out of my way." Song Sha's face paled as she immediately yelled to the people behind her. These people were all elites of the rookie students. Even after they saw this inconceivable scene, they wouldn't just stand in one place dumbfounded. They began to escape into the surroundings, not daring to obstruct this group of black creatures that were rushing forth like a flood. "Use magic, hurry up and use magic." Bai Zhangfeng screamed out strangely. Bai Zhangfeng had already started his star atlas. Between his two hands, a chaotic wind was brewing. Under the pressure from the Nix regime, the time Bai Zhangfeng took to complete his star atlas was much slower than normal. The formation nearly fractured. Finally, he still managed to complete the wind disk, tornado. The tornado came forth, the cold gale spinning at a high speed and turning into a massive howling whirlwind. Those dark beasts in front that were charging over drove themselves right into the whirlwind and were flung into the air. The black-skinned creatures began to fall down from the sky, one by one. As each one fell down, its bones shattered and its head smashed on the ground. Bai Zhangfeng's wind disk, tornado had offended the other dark beasts, who sent hostile looks over to indicate they were not going to let him get away with it. The leftover dark beasts' gazes locked onto him and his squad as they directly charged over. "Do you have a pig brain?" They were charging towards the shadow beast, so why are you provoking them? Song Sha loudly yelled at him from the side. Bai Zhangfeng's tornado seemed to have only killed 3 dark beasts. If it were outside the regime, then the tornado would have been able to kill an entire area full of dark beasts without a problem. However, beneath the Nix regime, other magic suffered from suppression. You would only be able to guarantee that your other elements would not receive any kind of restriction if you possessed the shadow element. Bai Zhangfeng looked at the increasing numbers of dark beasts crawling out of the shadow maze, and was so scared that his stomach was doing flip-flops. He never thought that there would be so many of these creatures. At this moment, the dark beast's eyes were like numerous stars as they fixed onto him. "Escape, hurry up and escape," one of his squad members yelled out. "Zhuang Lifeng, hurry up, use your intermediate plant magic," Sha Song commanded. Zhuang Lifeng didn't dare to think about the order. He gave up the primary plant magic and immediately started to draw his plant star atlas. Forest of Kun. Prison. Zhuang Lifeng seemed to be an expert, as he was able to adeptly use his magic while in danger. However, his Forest of Kun, which originally would have been able to completely occupy the path within the dark maze, was weakened by the Nix regime. It was only able to seal a third of the path, leaving behind a clear gap that allowed the creatures to run by. Don't panic, maintain the formation. Although there are quite a number of these creatures, they aren't that powerful. Shit, if it wasn't for the Nix regime suppressing my power, I would definitely turn them all into dregs. There were flames in the eyes of Song Sha. They could see her standing at the very front of her team, displaying incredible calm. She waited for the group of dark beasts to crawl through the gap of the Forest of Kun. Once they reached a certain distance, Song Sha yelled out as fierce flames came forth from beneath her feet. These flames completely wrapped around her body and turned her into a human torch. Fiery Fist. Groundbreak. The fiery fist appeared in a circle and condensed on the wrist of Song Sha the instant she finished chanting the spell. Her eyes flashed, and her burning fist fiercely drove down onto the ground beneath her feet. The scalding energy instantly poured into the ground. They could see burning cracks quickly spreading through the ground towards the dark beasts. Boom! The surface of the ground disintegrated. Incredibly thick flames bubbled forth and turned into a lotus fire break, filled with an aura of death as it exploded. The range of the lotus fire break was enormous, pillars of flames bursting through along the entire path. After those dark beasts charged into the area of the ground break that had burst through the ground, were all sent flying. Furthermore, they were all burned to black ash before they could hit the ground. Zhuang Lifeng and the other 2 members looked at the deadly lotus flames in front of them, their jaws dropping in astonishment, unable to close them. This was their first time seeing Song Sha use her full power. The second level of Fiery Fist's might was extremely astonishing. The wind disk, tornado could only kill 3 of these creatures, yet the Fiery Fist, groundbreak burned far more than just 3 right into ashes. Not to mention those that were still on fire. The Nix regime has suppressed our power too much. We have to scatter. there are still a lot of these creatures. We can't kill them all, Sha Song said to her squad members grimly. Everyone else naturally listened to this older sister. They quickly took advantage of the time the fiery fist, Groundbreak, was still burning to flee. As Bai Zhangfeng and Sha Song turned around, a human shadow emerged on the wall of the dark maze. He watched the 5 people who were already leaving, and then turned his gaze around. He directly locked onto the large group of dark beasts that were trapped within the forest of Kun and Fiery Fist. I'll gift you one more move. His gaze flashing, the fire appeared as though it had combusted. Rose-colored blood-red flames scuttled forth from beneath his feet. In the Nyx regime, his flames did not appear to have been affected, and the flames had reached a critical point. As the energy reached its climax, it felt like an angry god was about to explode through his fist. Rose flames. Fiery Fist. Groundbreak. Die. All of you. These flames were flames of vengeance. Their might was many, many times stronger than the Groundbreak from the girl from before. A large number of the dark beasts were instantly reduced to ashes when smashed by the rose-imbued Groundbreak flames. Miserable shrieks began to rise within the dark maze. Chapter 235, Killing the Henchman. Did you guys hear something? Sha Song suddenly stopped and turned around. Hear what? Who cares about those things? Bai Zhangfeng answered, his face still pale. It seems like they aren't pursuing us. Let's go back and take a look, Sha Song said. Great auntie. Do you have a death wish? Sha Song didn't understand these cowardly men, so she headed back without another word. She actually smelled an even stronger and more ferocious flame, and felt an even stronger magic fluctuation from the place they were at before. She returned to her original location step by step, following the black walls, until she realized that there was a large pile of black carcasses in front of her. These carcasses were piled up. It was hard to tell how many had died, not to mention the ones that had been turned into ashes. On the one hand, Sha Song was very confused. Why did these magical beasts, with such fierce appearances, appear in the Great Nyx regime formation? On the other hand, she didn't understand just who had killed this large group of magical beasts. The time between her running away and now was not much at all. This type of flame. Sha Song looked at the remnant blood-colored flames on the ground as her face displayed her astonishment. As a fire magician disciple from a famous family, how could Sha Song not recognize this type of flame? This wasn't common flame. These were spirit-grade flames. There must have been another fire magician here, a powerful fire magician that possessed spirit-grade fire. However, if you surveyed the entire Azure campus of the Pearl Institute, there was practically no one that possessed a spirit-grade seed. Just who was it that made these flames? The flames were actually so powerful that they were able to kill a large group of magical beasts in just this short period of time. They are dead. These magical beasts actually died? Could it be that each of them ran into Sha Song's Groundbreak flames after we left? Zhuang Lifeng wondered aloud. How could that be? Even if you are that stupid, these magical beasts are definitely not that foolish. It doesn't matter. There were things that didn't belong to our school in here. We must be careful, and if we encounter other people, we need to tell them as well. Sha Song said firmly. Too bad. Now we don't know where the shadow beast went again. Bai Zhangfeng's face turned furious. Don't worry, we can still chase after it. In the dusky, dark maze, a man with gray clothes was moving along the walls. The shadow beast was resting to the side. This time, Wei Yi would definitely not let this creature run away. Wei Yi was very cautious in his movements. He first had the dark beast silently block all possible escape routes for the shadow beast. Wei Yi waved his hand and ordered the dark beasts to slowly surround the shadow beast. It was clear that the shadow beast was exhausted from being chased around. As it sat there panting, it did not know that it was being surrounded by no less than 10 dark beasts. Suddenly, a man's voice was heard from the other side of the wall. It's here, it's here. Ha ha ha. You really find things if you spare no effort in trying. Shit, what are these things? The shadow beast turned around and realized a group of people were not too far away from it. It then looked around and realized the group of black-skinned creatures was crawling on the walls, their eyes emitting a green light as they revealed their white teeth. The shadow beast didn't even think before it began to run. In the Nyx regime, it was at least twice as fast as normal. It simply moved and disappeared from the very end of the dark maze walls. If they were to look for it, they wouldn't know which way to go. Shit! You blockheads dared to ruin my good moment. Wei Yi was flustered as he roared toward that group of people. Isn't this Senior Li Tong? What a coincidence. Seeing you is great. Did you see those creatures that were crawling on the walls? It was so scary. A girl with a ponytail displayed a smile as she saw Wei Yi in front of them. The man who scared away the shadow beast was still watching his surroundings. He was the only one who clearly saw those ghastly creatures' faces. Although the creatures disappeared in a flash, he did confirm that he saw them. Wei Yi suppressed his anger and had the dark beasts hide as fast as they could. Only then did he smile as he said, "Oh, so it was you guys. No, you guys scared away the shadow beast that I nearly caught. Senior Li Tong, why don't you team up with us? Our team just happens to be missing a person," the girl with the ponytail proposed. Wei Yi considered it and finally nodded. If he wanted to catch the shadow beasts, then he would definitely need the help of these people. This team's strength was pretty good. There was actually a shadow elemental user among them. A shadow magician was like a fish in water inside the Nyx regime. Chasing after the shadow beast with them would be very easy. Not too long afterward, they once again found the shadow beast. It was clearly out of strength, and no longer able to run. Ha ha ha, the opportunity to enter the 3-step pagoda will be ours. Yeah, the shadow beast no longer has any strength to run. Oh, it stinks. Do you guys smell something? I also smell it. What is this weird smell? The 4 people simultaneously pinched their noses. The stench that wafted onto them made it difficult to breathe. They didn't know where the stench was coming from. Wei Yi smiled coldly. His gaze was cunning as he stood behind the 4 people. If he were to face them directly, then he wouldn't be their match. However, if it was a sneak attack, even if they were intermediate magicians, they wouldn't be able to do anything. Once he took the shadow beast, he would be able to receive his reward. Suddenly, a man's voice snarled from the walls of the shadow maze, "Be careful." Everyone turned around, and realized there was a person they were somewhat familiar with coming out of the walls. It was like he had walked out of a shadow door, extremely strange to see. The student who was also a shadow user was extremely surprised when he saw the coming person. This person's usage of evading shadow was much more skillful than his own. If it wasn't for the fact that he had yelled out, he would not have sensed him at all. He had really achieved the realm of fusing together with the shadow. Isn't this the great demon? It's him. You. Don't come here. I'm warning you, no matter what, we are still 4 elites of Pearl Institute, if you want to mess with us. Shit, do you even dare to look at me? One of the surprised students spluttered. Mo Fan didn't pay any attention to them as he came out of the shadows. His gaze was fixed on the student called Senior Li Tong. So you're Mo Fan, how dare you think about stealing from us? Li Tong's reaction was fairly quick. He immediately retracted his curse aura as he took on the appearance of a normal student. Mo Fan's face was cold as he looked at him, before saying, "You can stop the act now. Look at your dark beasts." Li Tong's eyebrows creased. He swept his gaze over and realized that his strongest dark beast was stuck on the wall for some reason. It was fixed there as it struggled for its life. Its distorted body was trying to struggle, but stuck through its abdomen was something like a giant nail. It was like a sharp spike had nailed it to the wall, and it was unable to move a single step. Chapter 236. This lightning is not common lightning. HMPH, you think you can fight me on your own? The amount of dark beasts I can control are more than you could possibly imagine. Wei Yi was no longer acting. The smile on his face had turned into a gloomy sneer. As he said this, the stench immediately pervaded throughout the entire maze, instantly turning into a miasma. This miasma was actually toxic. If a person were to breathe this in for a minute, then they would get poisoned. If they passed out, then they'd basically be choked to death. The group of people had yet to react to what was happening, and were instantly enveloped in the miasma. One by one, they began to faint, except for the shadow student. He used the evading shadow to quickly move into a different area. Classmate, save your team members, or else they will die here. Mo Fan knew what was happening behind him, so he shouted at the shadow student in a loud voice. The student quickly responded, "All right, thank you." The miasma came from behind Wei Yi. There were many sharp voices coming out of the turbid miasma, rising from the crowd of dark beasts. They bared their fangs as they charged toward Mo Fan, wanting to rip him into pieces. Mo Fan took a step and his body sank into the shadows. He quickly turned into a shadow and flashed through the walls. In the next second, he appeared behind Wei Yi. Mo Fan slowly emerged from the shadows, and in his hand, a trace of lightning quickly scuttled forth. However, at the moment he was going to make his move, Wei Yi suddenly displayed a cold smile of disdain. A cold aura immediately arose from his body, and the ice chains emerged from the grounds and flew towards Mo Fan. Ice! Mo Fan was a bit astonished, and he hastily jumped backwards. The ice chains were brandished as they began to surround Mo Fan from all directions in a sequence. Their chill turned people's bones rigid. Mo Fan knew that he was underestimating Wei Yi's abilities. He immediately activated the soul imprint and opened the power of his blood beast boots. Red light flashed around Mo Fan's legs and interwove into something that resembled armor before it covered his legs. At the same time, there was a red line that looked like a blood vessel pouring onto Mo Fan's legs, and the power of his legs rose sharply. Swoosh! A thick ice shackle swept toward Mo Fan's back. It arced towards him, looking like a gigantic python that was about to wrap itself around Mo Fan's body. Mo Fan used the erupting power of the blood beast boots and jumped away suddenly, dodging the ice shackle. As he stepped onto the thick ice shackle, Mo Fan used the force from being lashed at to land directly onto the dark wall. Go! Wei Yi controlled the remaining ice shackle. It was like he had predicted the location Mo Fan would leap onto, and he quickly used the ice shackles to form a gigantic binding formation. The ice shackles rushed forward. Mo Fan knew he had to avoid their tips, so he stomped heavily on the dark walls, his body shooting away like a catapult toward an even safer area. The ice shackles were flying as they chased him, and they nearly caught him. Once you were locked on by the ice shackles, then struggling to escape from was very difficult. You dare to fight against us, the Black Vatican, with that little ability? Let me tell you, whoever has caught the attention of our Black Vatican can dream about living properly again, and you are definitely not an exception. Wei Yi watched the moving Mo Fan, who was in a difficult situation. The smile on his face turned increasingly sinister. He was an intermediate ice magician. Adding on to that was the fact that he could obtain many dark beasts for fighting. This Mo Fan actually tried to fight against him. That was far too naive. Fortunately, the Shadow Beast was already too tired to move. After he finished off Mo Fan and brought the Shadow Beast to Sir Priest, then he would be the person with the most outstanding service for this operation. For trash like you, even if more of you came, I'd still be able to annihilate them. Mo Fan stood there as his eyes turned solemn. Wei Yi once again displayed a cold smile. He pointed toward Mo Fan, and the dark beasts within the miasma immediately surrounded him. At a quick glance, there were no less than 10 of them. Wei Yi did not plan on fighting against Mo Fan head-on. He wanted to use the dark beasts to tire him out and then use the ice shackles at the critical moment. That way, he'd be able to finish everything. Ooh ooh! From a silvery crack in the air, a gigantic wolf head stretched out, followed by its sturdy and powerful body. Its long blue fur was fluttering with the wind. Its bright eyes and full expression were filled with the wild nature of a wolf. Those dark beasts are yours, Mo Fan said to the spirit wolf. The spirit wolf was indeed violent. It didn't bother warning those dark beasts, nor did it care about how many there were. It took a couple of steps and charged toward them. The dark beasts were furious, and they had an advantage in numbers. This spirit wolf was indeed very arrogant. How dare it not place them in its eyes? They were all minion class, or was it saying that the 10 of them could not win against one? The dark beasts moved to encircle the wolf, nimbly trying to pull off hit-and-run tactics. To speak frankly, it was just biting the opponent and clawing them once before they retreated. They wanted to bleed the spirit wolf to death. The spirit wolf wasn't that easy to deal with. Not all of the dark beasts that attacked him were able to retreat successfully. 2 of them who had left wounds were quickly swatted to the ground by the claws of the spirit wolf, and then were brutally stomped to death. Mo Fan realized his spirit wolf's combat prowess was indeed high. Even if it was unable to match 10 dark beasts, it was still able to defeat their formation in a short period of time. The most important thing was to kill the member of the Black Vatican in front of him, who was pretending to be a student. From the strength he had displayed, he should only be a henchman. That was fine, too. Getting rid of their henchmen before finding their master would also be advantageous. He could not do close combat. This guy's ice shackles were pretty impressive. If he really did get trapped, he would be in quite some danger. Forget it. What was the point of bullshitting with this person? Let's just directly kill him. As a man who possessed the most violent element of lightning and thunder, he would be able to deal with most problems just by using a fist. If that didn't work, he could use thunderbolt. I refuse to believe this henchman will be able to withstand my explosive attacks. Mofan didn't say much as the dark purple lightning arc appeared around his body. The star paths interlinked and quickly turned into a lightning star atlas beneath Mofan's feet. If he wanted to be tyrannical, then what else would he use, other than lightning? At this time, Mofan did not need to hide any of his powers. He needed to let this lackey of the Black Vatican understand that not everyone from Bo City was easily provocable. Dark purple color. This lightning isn't a common grade lightning. Wei Yi was retracting the ice shackles. He wanted to use it defensively, but after he saw that Mofan's lightning was dark purple, his eyes began to widen. The lightning element was incredibly fierce. If the lightning was spirit grade, then even if his ice shackles condensed into a protective layer and stacked on top of a defensive magic equipment, it might not be enough to defend against it.